Step on up, sit down, twist off that bottle top or crack open that can, and welcome to Porch Matters. This is Terry Cagle coming to you from my back porch. Yes sir, yes ma'am, the name of this show is authentic. On Porch Matters, our saying is this: big issues or just a friendly conversation, no topic is off limits. We take pride in being able to talk about anything with each other in an open discussion. Open discussion is one of the only ways to learn. Your perspective could be changed. You could change the perspective of others. Friends and family, welcome back to another episode of Porch Matters. I'm glad you're here. As I'm sitting out here on the porch, Hurricane Ida has made landfall in Louisiana. I hope everyone in that area that might be hearing this is safe from the storm. The storm looks to be headed straight for New Orleans. I hope the rebuilt levee system holds up and history don't repeat itself. The last couple of weeks have been very hectic at work, so last night I took Stacy and Xander over to West Point and ate at the Branding Iron Steakhouse. Had myself a very nice 18-ounce ribeye. I do always enjoy going there and highly recommend it if you are in driving distance of the Coleman area in Alabama. Brandon Iron is definitely #Fatboy approved. We also went to the German Axe House off of Main Avenue in Coleman. It's our first time there. Always seen axe houses, always seen the videos of axe throwing, just hadn't done it yet, and I've really been wanting to try it. Very nice place. Awesome staff that was very helpful. We got a crash course in axe throwing. Stacy walks up to the line on her very first throw and hits a bullseye. I was shocked, just to be honest with you. I kindly felt like Miyagi in The Karate Kid whenever Daniel-san caught the fly with the chopsticks. And he looks over there at him and says, "You'll beginner luck." Xander, it took a little while for him to get it figured out, but after a while, he finally got himself a bullseye too. After I got going, I got into a rhythm and had a really great time. I hit a few, but you're not supposed to brag about yourself. Week 1 of college football has started. I hope y'all are all excited as I am. This is always my favorite time of year. Football is in my blood. I can't help it. I love baseball. I used to enjoy basketball, but I just love football. I love going by a high school and seeing the lights on Friday nights. I also love going to the cathedral of college football known as Bryant-Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa, Alabama as well. Roll Tide to all my fellow Crimson Tide fans. Down here, we could care less about the NFL. Some of us think the SEC is the best football in the world, and guess what? We would be correct. I know how football was very instrumental in my life. A lot of life lessons were learned on the football field for me. And I'm pretty sure a lot of y'all that played football can definitely see where I'm going with that. Football gets a bad rap these days with all the new science with concussions, but the game has a whole lot more positives than it does negatives. On this episode, friend of the show and host of the Carry On podcast, Lindsey Rowland, returns to the porch. After seeing what happened in Afghanistan, I was very upset and angry at what I saw and immediately reached out to Lindsey. We started talking about it like many people around the world did, and we decided it was best to just hit the record button. Since this recording, we've lost soldiers in an explosion. My heart goes out to the family and friends of those that have fallen. I really appreciate Lindsey coming onto the show. I really appreciate her insight, and I hope you do too. As I have said in the last episode she was on, and as I will say in this recording, she's got a spot on this porch anytime she wants to show up. So I hope you enjoy hearing her thoughts and hearing her perspectives as much as I did. Complete honesty, this recording was originally going to be dropped as a bonus episode, but Like I said earlier, my work schedule has been very hectic and I wasn't able to get this ready to publish in time. Bonus episode or regular episode, I think you will enjoy the conversation and hopefully get something out of it. Without further ado, let's get started. Lindsey Rowland, welcome back to the porch, ma'am. I wish it was under better circumstances because I'm just going to go ahead and be straight up and honest. I'm a little pissed off. How about you?
Yeah, it's been a bad week. And when I say bad week, I mean, I'm not trying to take away anything from Afghanistan right now because they're having a bad week, a real bad week. So I try to remember that. But yes, to answer your question, yes.
How's your week been? I know you just said it was bad, but elaborate.
I mean, we've just been watching. I just think there's so many points of contention here. Our commander in chief, who I still strongly believe in, we need to respect no matter what party, gave us two really lousy press conferences this week. And you have the baby, we'll hit the highlights, and then you have the baby being passed over the fence. And you have just, Americans, and I've heard different numbers, but a significant amount. I've heard up to almost 15,000, which I think is high, but I don't know for sure. Still in Afghanistan, somewhere around, either the airport or out in the deeper parts into Afghanistan. And it's just really, really infuriating. And then of course, Biden was on vacation. And I don't want to make this about him, but it is infuriating because we are so well trained and our military is so high speed that this is absolutely infuriating that we are not on the ground fixing this at this moment. I know that we've deployed about 6,000 Marines, which is interesting that we have to have a surge when we're downsizing. But on top of that, I also do want to say I did 2 tours in Iraq. I did that surge for 15 months, and then I did another 9-month tour with 10th Mountain. So this is not, I was not in Afghanistan, but I will say that this feels a lot like when ISIS took over Iraq. And I think that no matter whether you served, actually in the country, my heart goes out to my fellow soldiers that did serve. And I'm talking too much, so let's get back to you.
No, ma'am, we're not talking too much at all. Just like you were talking about, you seen the video of what looked like to me. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I know the news has talked about the people that were getting onto the plane to try and, climbing onto it and hanging onto it just trying to escape the Taliban. But I saw that video and it looked like there were several of them running around the plane actually cheering. Did we see the right video? Did we see the same video?
Who was cheering? Afghanistan's or
it looked like there was a few right there in the front that was actually jumping for joy. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but that video has been taken down that I looked at.
Yeah, I'm not sure. And I'm sure that there's a certain Taliban population or that is excited that we're gone. But, I don't know. I have not seen that particular video.
Okay. Yeah, because I sent it to a couple of friends of mine, one of which is a listener to the show. Hi, Lance. And by the time he got to look at it, he couldn't pull it up. But like I said, I hope I'm wrong. But watching that, that's what it looked like to me. And it just made my blood boil. That and the fact that we've spent 20 years over there. And this is the ending that we're looking at. All the lives that have been lost.
Yes.
All of the, all these families that are broken up on both sides and everything like that. And this is the ending we're looking at. And I'm trying to be reasonable. I know we should have gotten out of Afghanistan arguably years ago. I just not this way. And why now the reports are coming in that the Taliban now has access to all kinds of our military equipment that was just abandoned. why did we leave our stuff back behind like that whenever now they have control of it?
Well, a couple things on that. I was a logistics officer, so it's actually more expensive to bring it all back. I think for the most part, because I would imagine usually when you hand equipment over to the local nationals or the local national army, you give them like the old shit that's already been in war. And I know we sent a lot of it from Iraq to Afghanistan, so I would imagine that equipment, for the most part, it isn't going to behoove us to bring it back. But that's still not an excuse. But I do want to talk on something that you were talking about. So I definitely respect your opinion that we should have gotten out of Afghanistan. I'm going to go the opposite route, though. I think we were absolutely fine still there. If you actually look at the numbers, we only had 2,500 troops on the ground in the last 18 months. We had one combat death. This was under Trump, and more recently under Biden, until he decided, he was going to have his moment in time around the 9/11 anniversary to end this war. But if you look at it, we have like 38,000 troops in Germany right now, and we have about 28,000 in South Korea. And so I just really don't think that there was a need. And the reason why we still had troops, everybody campaigns, Obama, Trump to some degree, campaigned on getting us out of Iraq.
He did.
And a little bit. But so under Trump, though, I think it's important to note that, to get us out of Afghanistan. Under Trump, it's important to note, though, that Trump was willing to withdraw if the Taliban made certain concessions or met certain requirements. And so, and the Afghan army together. And so because those requirements and conditions were not made, that is why we still had troops in Afghanistan. So even Trump knew that this was not a good idea. So to me, Biden, did campaign on getting us out of Afghanistan, but as our leader, he has all of this critical information, and he should have made a command decision and been a leader and been like, hey, this isn't going to work. And maybe, maybe I did campaign on this, but maybe I don't need to make it happen because it's not safe for the American people when there's no pullout plan. That it's not safe for the women in Afghanistan that we've empowered for the last 20 years. It's not safe for the war on terror. It's not safe for having a place where Al-Qaeda can continue to grow and expand after we've. So, I think there was a leadership decision that needed to be made there. And I think Biden decided that he was going to have his 9/11 anniversary pull out of Afghanistan. And we're looking at the results right now. And we needed and still need a leader that would have looked at the intel that his entire community has provided him and made a different decision. So that's kind of how I feel right now. And just to point out, take a look at South Korea. Yes, we're still there. But look at how well South Korea is doing.
It's a true story.
So
they say South Korea is one of the most democratic countries in the world.
One other thing I wanted to point out is that, soldiers, I was in the military for 10 years. I had soldiers. I was a soldier to leadership at one point. We like to deploy. So you have a lot of soldiers running around, and I'm not necessarily talking about the special forces community, but I'm talking about your average infantry soldier, ranger, whatever. They like to deploy. So having a deployment to Afghanistan for 18 months or 12 months, that it's like the only chance that they're getting like deployment time right now, unless they're going on like these little missions like intermittently. So to say that the military was for the pullout, I don't know if that's true. I think, and to say that the American people really cared if we pull out of Afghanistan, again, I don't really know if that's true. When is the last time somebody really a civilian came out on a stance that we need to pull out of Afghanistan? Like nobody was even paying attention. It was so completely unnecessary.
Well, you make valid points. Valid points. You're right. Nobody really was throwing too much of a fit about Afghanistan until this popped up.
And we only lost I say only. I know that sounds horrible. When you think about all the people that we lost in Afghanistan and all the people that we lost in Iraq and all the people that we lost at 9/11, we had one combat death in 18 months. So we weren't losing, like, 100 troops or even like 10 troops here and there. It wasn't happening.
Okay, well, since you went there, what were those 2,500 troops that were in Afghanistan? What were they doing?
No, I did not go there. I did Iraq twice. That's what I was clarifying in the beginning.
No, ma'am, that's not what I was talking about. I was talking about what you just said, how there wasn't but like 2,500 or some odd number of troops that was still stationed in Afghanistan before all of this major pullout deal. What were those troops doing? Do you know?
I mean, just to speculate, I would imagine just they were, working out of Kabul. They were working at the big air base there. Probably had special forces teams, working in some of the smaller towns out, on more in the countryside. I'd say a lot of admin. They were probably doing a lot of work on, the transfer of equipment to the Afghanistans and training the army. So there's probably still what we used to call SFAT teams. I don't know what they call them anymore. And then you had all your support, your feeding, your maintenance, your logistics, like that. So, I mean, if you look at 2,500, like that's like such a small amount,
right,
of troops. So that I would imagine a lot of it was support.
Okay. So I'm just really trying to understand from a civilian perspective what exactly happened. And I've been trying to do that all week, basically. Why I would really love to know why the whole pulling out thing happened right now. And as a civilian, I could have swore that the Taliban wasn't as strong now as what they are appearing to be.
Yeah,
has the media been lying to us?
Yeah, because we had 25. They couldn't have been as strong, but they were obviously waiting for us to leave. I mean, they knew if they waited out Trump long enough that they would find someone weak enough. And so the Taliban comes from the countrysides predominantly. So they've been waiting for this to happen. Now, let's be clear that the Taliban and Al Qaeda are two separate things. The Taliban allowed Al Qaeda to fester and to cause, to use Afghanistan as a base for their terrorist attacks. So I think to some degree that Al Qaeda might have weakened, but I don't know that the Taliban weakened that much. They just continued to grow within, the family system. So you either supported the American troops for the last 20 years or you supported the Taliban. And I don't know that there was much wiggle room in between. And so to say that they weren't powerful, well, they were just waiting. They were just waiting for us to, and in certain pockets in Afghanistan, I mean, it is known that they are still very much unofficially under Taliban control. And we have brought them to the table and not necessarily legitimize them, but we have, Trump did try to give them legitimate government options to become a government. And those talks fell through, but it's not like the Taliban hasn't been present.
Was he doing that just to try and bring peace?
I mean, I don't really want to speculate. I think that they were trying to bring the Taliban at the table to maybe tone down the human rights abuses and give them some legitimacy as a government, in hopes that maybe they would take back Afghanistan, jointly with the Afghanistan army. I mean, that's what I would assume.
I just wished everything would have went differently, because whenever I started seeing those videos and everything coming through like they did, I'm not a soldier, never have been, but I love my country and I love the military. I know people in the military. I know people who have been in the military. It made me so stinking mad I couldn't see straight, if that makes any sense. Is this our generation's Vietnam?
I mean, yeah, yes and no. I think you have to take a look at I think Vietnam was a whole different ball game. So yeah, I would say probably yes. I don't know that it's gonna. I'm hoping that with the Marines that went in recently, we'll just continue to keep a presence there, and we'll call this one, a mistake and move forward. So it could. I think there's potential to get worse, and we also don't even know what, we have inklings of what the Taliban is doing to women now and what they will continue to do. But we don't know what's going on, like, in the super rural areas of Afghanistan. So I think that the human rights abuses could just become, could become a lot more, could become a lot worse, and then could become a lot more publicized because the media will eventually, get wind of it. So yes and no. I think they're very different wars. So yeah, I would say yes and no.
What do you think about the president coming out and mandating vaccine usage in all your nursing homes?
I'm sorry. He mandated the vaccines in all nursing homes by what, employees or?
Yeah, all employees now have to have, or is supposed to have the vaccine.
I mean, I don't want to speak directly on that, but I will say, I know this looming deadline on Monday has a lot of federal agencies and I would say that I'm more well rehearsed on the military getting vaccines mandatory, by mid-September when FDA approval comes out. And I mean, it's infuriating because, I think soldiers should get the option if they want, and DoD employees should have the option to take the shot. It's only been around for a year now, maybe even less. So there's no way that you can tell me that we know the long-term effects of this. So I think it should it should definitely not be mandatory. It should be required, yes, that you take a COVID test every 2 weeks. And how hard is that? You can actually, like in schools particularly, you can, I know under 12 you don't get the shot, but you can make this part of your curriculum. Like you can bring a team in that swabs people every 2 weeks to check. And I think that gives people their constitutional right back. And they should do the same thing with the military. I mean, they have not had huge outbreaks. Even initially, they didn't have that huge outbreaks with COVID. So to say that they need to require this all for military and DoD employees is absolutely crazy. And again, I think it's a part of Biden and the Liberal Party taking away our rights slowly. And so I'm really glad I'm not in the military anymore because I have not gotten the shot. I will not get the shot. And it is infuriating to me that our soldiers, will be mandated to get the shot.
I agree wholeheartedly. I know people, and I'm very close to people who work in the medical field, and a lot of them are torn. Some of them are absolute believers in the shot. They've been preaching it since word go. Others have not been so high on it because, just as you said, it's brand new. We don't know the long-term ramifications of it. They don't want to have to get it because they have never been forced to get, say, anything for HIV, which there is nothing yet, even though they did say that they were working on an HIV vaccine and they were fixing to start doing human trials. You're not mandated to get the hepatitis A or B vaccine. You've got the option for it. There's a lot of different stuff that they've never been mandated to get other than maybe a flu shot. And now all of a sudden it's a mandate that they have to have it. I think you're going to have a significant amount of people in the medical field in nursing homes or whatever that are actually going to quit because of it. I think they're going to find something else to do. And then what do you do?
You have to ask yourself too, like, first of all, number one, they were heroes like a year ago, and now you're going to fire them. And why are they not getting the shot? If you have a nurse, if you like legitimately have a nurse or a doctor who's not getting the shot, like that should tell you right there what you need to know. Exactly.
Yeah. I know for a fact there's several doctors out there that will not get it because they've seen studies and stuff like that we probably don't have access to. But
do you have the shot?
No, I do not. I don't plan on getting it anytime soon either. It's not because I'm just trying to be a rebel or anything like that. I've done some critical thinking. I don't trust narratives all the time. And I've done my own research. And there's studies out there. As I said on the previous episode, I'm not trying to rehash old episodes, but I'm just going to, in conversation with you, because I want your perspective on it. Everybody always talks about trust the science and believe the science and everything like that, but science can be bought just like anything else. You've got science that, for the right amount of money or whatever, can produce results for this side narrative or this side's narrative. It's hard to trust science to a degree, but I have seen some studies out there where they're talking about how the vaccine itself, if you've had COVID before, which I have, and you develop antibodies and everything, the vaccine can actually kill the antibodies. And the antibodies is what's supposed to protect you from future illness and everything, right? Ain't that the way the body's designed?
I mean, who knows at this point? But yeah, you would think, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they've twisted everything so much that you can't even
Yeah, it's almost like these days that mask and that vaccine is just a political symbol now. It's not about, it doesn't seem like it's about the actual quote pandemic. It's just about control. That's kind of what it feels like to me. As far as that goes, no, I don't want to get it. As long as I have a choice, I'm not going to get it. If they show me results and everything that shows that this vaccine is not going to be harmful to me long term, I'll consider it. I antiquate it to buying a new phone. And in the last episode, that's what I compared it to. Every single time that they put out an iPhone, as I hold mine up, I'm an Apple guy. You might be an Android girl. I don't know. But every single time that they put out a new phone, for the first 6 months to a year, what are they doing? Working out bugs. There's always something wrong with it. Whenever they get everything worked out, and then whenever they drop the price, I might go get me a new phone. But until then, I wait on them to work out the bugs. They hadn't had enough time to work out the bugs on this. The only thing that's been rushed quicker than this was the polio vaccine. And if you look back at your research, yeah, it was the miracle vaccine to start with. But then within 5 to 10 years afterwards, people started having worse side effects from the vaccine than they ever did from the polio vaccine. So I'm skeptical. Call me crazy, but I'm skeptical.
Well, yeah, I think that's a great point with the phone. I think that makes sense. And I also wanted to point out something that you said earlier. Like you said, you're not trying to be a rebel. And like, I feel the same way. Like, I'm not trying to be a rebel on this. Because if I was going to rebel about something, I would much rather rebel about our Second Amendment rights, or, I can think of, the vet, how we treat veterans at the VA. Like
Yes.
if I was going to rebel about something, this would not be what I would rebel about. So I think that's a really good point. And you have like a lot of like liberals online that will just like rip you apart if they think you're an anti-vaxxer. But, and I know this point's been made before, but I just throw back in their face that, like, my body, my choice. I mean, that's what you guys, do with abortion all the time. And you murder people, you murder children. I'm just like not getting the vaccine, wearing my mask and maybe getting a COVID test once in a while. So like, don't come at me about how, don't come at me of like what I'm going to put into my body. And I'm not like, my parents got the vaccine, my brother got the vaccine. So I'm not picking on you if you want to get the vaccine, but it is your body and it is your choice. But I also reserve the right to choose.
I know several people that's got the vaccine. They seem to be doing fine. I applaud them. Good job. I just don't want to go get it. It is my choice. I still use common sense. I still wash my hands pretty regularly. I've seen a meme that I kindly identify with. It said that I've absorbed so much hand sanitizer that I clean the toilet when I pee.
I haven't heard that. That's funny, actually.
But, I still try and do everything that I know to do, because the whole vaccine push, it wasn't here this time last year. And this is what we all had to do to try and stay safe, right? What's the difference?
Yeah. And like, you're even talking about like kids going back to school and stuff. Well, kids under 12 are not even supposed to get the vaccine. So, what are you going to, the damage that you're doing, like keeping them home and, of course people with money or people that, live in middle class America, like their kids are fine. They go ride their bikes every day with the neighborhood, and they live in they live in nice neighborhoods, and their parents have money for like lessons and stuff. But let's talk about the other kids that are living in like low income areas where mom's working, 2 jobs or 3 jobs, and there isn't someone there to homeschool them, and there isn't someone there to take them to lessons, and there's an alcoholic father. And I'm not saying that low income households don't raise their children well, but what I'm saying is that they don't have access to, maybe things like the mother's time to homeschool them, or less piano lessons, or a neighborhood full of kids that are able to do this, travel and go on vacation to get away from COVID. So we have to take a look at like those kids as well. Because in a year and in 2 years from now, when we continue to not send them to school, and we continue to let child abuse run rampant because we don't have kids going to school, those are the kids that are going to suffer. So, like everybody that, their parents can work from home because they have like a decent job or whatever, the last year, and they, didn't get COVID, the last year hasn't been that hard for them. Parents didn't lose their jobs, but there's a whole different group of Americans that have suffered greatly. And so, to talk about like not putting kids back in school because of the COVID shot or whatnot, like we just really need to like pick up and move on, because the damage that we're doing in other areas is going to be so intense and immense. And it's going to be really hard to bridge that social gap, because it already is. But, can you imagine in a couple of years from now when those kids have stopped learning or have become stagnant in education? So sorry, I got off on a tangent there, but.
Don't apologize. You're on a roll, and I like it.
You just got to think about that. And not everyone is sitting at home able to like hire a nanny to like cook and clean for mom and dad who are working and homeschool them. And like, that's what we show on TV, and that's who we interview on the news. But there's a lot of people that are still really hurting. And so I think getting our kids back in school is one of those things that we can do to help alleviate the parents, pressures of educating their child and working full time. And we can, make sure that these kids are okay.
On top of that, a lot of the kids need the social interaction at school that school provides for them to be able to grow.
Absolutely.
It's not just about books. It's not just about reading, writing, and arithmetic, although those are very important, but the social structure is also just as important. My opinion.
Absolutely. And can you imagine how long of a year it has been for someone who is like living at home with like an alcoholic parent, or someone that's in their lives, not really going to school, not really seeing anyone else, and being like physically abused or sexually. Can you imagine like what a long year COVID's been, or a year and a half?
Yeah. Or for that matter, just a kid that's an only child that doesn't have any kids to play with around their neighborhood.
Yeah, you can do a lot of damage to your kids in in general, but just in those years of the socialization is necessary, and just so that those kids are seen by someone else besides the immediate family.
But
sorry, my goal when I'm done being a lobbyist, I want to be a social worker. I just don't want to go back to school, but social work is like on my agenda when I decide like lobbying isn't for me anymore. So that's why I'm so passionate about that topic.
Yeah. What else would you like to talk about? I want to hear from you.
I think we covered everything. I'm trying to think what else is hot right now. I mean, ideally, I would like to see Biden, and maybe it's already in the works. I'd like to see us go in, retake over the airport, retake over the areas, evacuate the Americans, get them all out, get out the Afghanistans that we've promised some sort of deal to. And let's take, with his end of August deadline, which is bullshit, let's take the time and do it. Let's do it right. And let's, leave long term. Let's leave the troops necessary there in Afghanistan. And so I'm hoping that those things are in the works right now. I was listening to a podcast this morning. They were talking about like what veterans from the Afghanistan war, what we can do now. And it's kind of like the person was talking about it is JC Glick, and he was on Veteran Trash Talk, but he was just talking about like that we just need to be there for each other, because we really did fight wars for each other. You always fought for the soldiers to your right and your left. So we have to like remember that in these times and look out for each other and continue to look out for each other, and remember that like our legacy and what we do now, you know, not necessarily in regards to Afghanistan, but into our lives and being healthy people and working through PTSD and these things, like, you know, that needs to be what we can focus on, because we can control that right now and not, you know, falling down these like dark black holes, which are very easy to do. That we need to stay strong for each other. And I thought that was a really important message from him. So,
as a veteran, how has this been on you?
I mean, I was supposed to deploy to Afghanistan with an SFAT team for my third deployment, and I ended up going to foreign area officer instead. And the team I was supposed to be on, like 3 of them died in a friendly forces fire. So there's definitely some, you know, emotional regret that I probably would have been in the room that day, and there was a good chance I probably would have died. But I talked to my brigade commander about it this week, and he's like, Lindsey, you just can't, you know, you can't say that. You don't know if you would have been in that room. You don't know if you would have died. And, you know, is it really worth going down that rabbit hole? And, you know, he said, just remember Colonel Clark for what he was, you know, to you, and the great leader that he was. And I think that that was an important message from him this week, that, you know, yes, yes, I understand the guilt, but, and then also I just keep my mind on, and I hate it when people say, especially like I suffer from depression. So I hate it when someone says to someone that's depressed, like someone else always has it worse. But I think in this case, it's applicable because, you know, what Americans in Afghanistan are going through right now, what Afghanistanis are going through. So I just try to like remember that and send my prayers that way, because sitting around and feeling depressed has been what the week has been like, but it's not really that productive. So that's kind of where my headspace has been at this week. And I'm hoping to see some improvements, because even though I'm not a big Biden fan, he's got a lot of people around him that are really smart. And so I'm hoping that he takes their advice and he, you know, kind of moves out from here and does like a shock and awe, or does a recovery of his withdrawal.
I think that what you just said right there should resonate. And if nobody that has been in the military got anything out of this episode, they got something out right there, where you were talking about how you're dealing with this. I think that's good. And I got something out of it in the broad spectrum. I'm not near as mad as I was after talking to you about it, because you were one of the first people that I messaged. You know, whenever I first saw those videos and hearing about everything, I was beyond enraged, more so than what I am now. I'm pretty calm compared to what I was. But I think that as long as we can still keep some kind of a semblance of control in the area, that nothing will be in vain. Basically, just try and calm down, or be rational, be reasonable, but yet we as a nation needs to hold our political officials to the fire and make sure that they do what they're supposed to do, and make the best decisions for us long term and our people.
Exactly. And I don't think, like, again, don't get me started again, but I don't think we have all the information to always know what those best decisions are. But I think when you tell people you're going to leave from Afghanistan, you don't have to keep that promise to us if it doesn't meet the common sense check. And that's what we owe. That's what you owe us as leaders, is that you have that information. So you and I can sit here and speculate all day long about what information he has and what decisions he should make, but he has all the information. And that's what a leader does, is they make the best call. And he may not have, if he hadn't made this call, he may not have been the hero, because the 9/11, 20th anniversary is like in weeks away. He may not have been a hero, but he would have saved a lot of lives, and he would have made a decision that wasn't about Biden.
Lindsey Rowland, I appreciate you coming onto the porch yet again. You've always got a spot here on the porch with me anytime you want to come on.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. And I'm sorry I'm so disgruntled. It's, I think we both can attest that it's just been a long week. So
Yes.
thank you for having me.
Big thanks to Lindsey Rowland for coming back on the porch. You can find her on social media by typing Carry On Podcast into the search bar. Find Carry On Podcast on your favorite podcast app and like, subscribe, or follow. If you are new to the show and like what you hear, hit that like, subscribe, or follow button and download the episodes in our archives. If this show has been a positive addition to your life, please rate the show and leave a review. Won't take you but a minute, and it really would help the show. Find us on social media by typing Porch Matters Podcast into the search bar. Word of mouth is still the best way of sharing. Pick your favorite episodes and share it with at least one person this week. There are a lot of people out there that, believe it or not, have never heard of a podcast before. I sure would appreciate it. And I'll see you next time, right here on Porch Matters.